Hello students, hello JAMB 2025 students, you're welcome to EduMath Hub. In this video, we're taking a one-shot quick overview of human nutrition. And let's start like this. We're starting with the elements in the classes of food. So we're starting with the elements in the classes of food. So carbohydrates, that's the first one. All carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That is why the formula of glucose is C6H12O6, which is a monosaccharide. So that is glucose for you. So it's an organic compound. The next one is fats. All fats contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Then all proteins contain the same elements, including nitrogen, and sometimes it also includes sulfur. So these are the basic elements contained in the major classes of food. And these three classes of food are the major sources of energy. If you eat any food containing carbohydrates, protein, or fats, you're going to gain a lot of energy. Okay? Then we move to the next part, which is the principal sources of food. Now, for this part, we're talking about the principal sources of food. The first one is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are majorly from wheat, rice, noodles, eba, gari, and stuff like that. That's where you get your carbohydrates from. The next one is proteins. Proteins can be obtained from milk or meat or fish. Then for fats, we talk about red meat and oil, vegetable oil, and so on. For vitamin D is called the sunshine vitamin, sometimes also called calciferol. So that vitamin D can be obtained from milk or sunlight. Then we'll talk about vitamin C. Vitamin C can be obtained from citrus fruits. Vitamin C is an acid. It's also called ascorbic acid. So take note of that. The citrus fruits we're talking about here are fruits like orange and lime. Then for iron can be obtained from liver. When you eat the liver of animals, maybe fish, or you eat the liver of maybe all these goats and cow, you get iron from there. The next one is calcium. Calcium can be obtained from milk, cheese, and eggs. Then fiber can be obtained from fruits and vegetables. You're going to see the importance of fiber later when we talk about peristalsis. Okay, then dietary importance. Let's talk about dietary importance. Now, for carbohydrates, why are carbohydrates important? They are important because they are the main source of energy for the human body. You want to do a heavy work, then you must have eaten carbohydrates or starch. Then proteins help in the synthesis of protoplasm. Protoplasm is just the cytoplasm and the nucleus all together, so you call them protoplasm. So the protoplasm, it will help the cell in the repair of worn out tissues. Then it also helps in the synthesis of enzymes and hormones. Synthesis of enzymes and hormones, as you can see there. The enzymes are just chemical substances that they're like catalysts. They help in to speed up biochemical reactions in the body. They talk about antibodies. The antibodies are the substances that help to fight antigens. Antigens are things like bacteria, fungi that enter the body. When you eat good protein, that's when you can have enough antibodies to fight off these antigens. The next one is fats. So fats are used in the synthesis of membranes. The synthesis of membranes takes place in a part of the cell called endoplasmic reticulum. Again, there are two types. You have the rough endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And the process of synthesis of membranes is called membrane biogenesis. Okay, let's move to the next one. Solvents for fat-soluble vitamins. What are the fat-soluble vitamins? We talk about vitamins like A, D, E, and vitamin K. These are the 4 fat-soluble vitamins. Take note of that. Vitamin A, D, E, and K. To remember them, you can just use ADEC to remember them. Then fats are sources of energy too. I told you guys that the sources of energy majorly for food are from fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So fats are also a source of energy, and fats are also insulating materials. Okay, they cannot conduct heat. That's because they contain the major component of fats is triglycerides. So triglycerides are poor conductor of heat. The next one is vitamin D. Vitamin D promotes the absorption of calcium. So if you have a lot of vitamin D, or the sunshine vitamin, or calciferol, it will help you to absorb a lot of calcium from calcium-rich foods. Then vitamin C, also called ascorbic acid, it's an organic acid. Okay, ascorbic acid, that's vitamin C. It's needed for the formation of intercellular substances to hold cells together and to maintain healthy epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues are just they're also called epithelium. That's just the tissues covering the outer surface of an organ or a tissue in the body, or any internal body organ. Next one is iron. So iron is a component of hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is what the oxygen-rich blood will bind to so that it gets transported to other parts of the body. Okay, it helps to transfer or transmit oxygenated blood from one part of the body to the other. So we talk about calcium. So calcium is needed for building bones, strong teeth, normal functioning of muscles, and the blood clotting process. As you can see here, so calcium is very, very important. So if you have a lot of vitamin D, it will help you to absorb lots of calcium. The next one is fiber. Fiber can help you to provide bulk to undigested matter and to promote peristalsis. We'll talk about peristalsis later. Peristalsis is just the wave-like movement of bolus or food down the alimentary canal. We'll talk about it later when we get there. So this one is water. What is water used for? So water is needed for various enzymatic reactions, and water is the main component of blood plasma. So water is needed for lots of biochemical reactions that take place in the body. Then we talk about diseases now. Diseases now, vitamin C. Deficiency of vitamin C leads to scurvy. So scurvy, what are the symptoms of scurvy? You have swelling blood, swollen bleeding gums, and losing of teeth. Then vitamin D, lack of vitamin D causes rickets. That's kind of similar symptoms to this one too. But it is poor teeth and bone formation, okay, and swollen joints, deformities such as bow leg in children, and soft bones. The next one is calcium. Calcium has the same deficiency disease as vitamin D. If you have a lot of vitamin D, you'll be able to absorb calcium, so they're kind of related in a way. So vitamin D, lack of calcium causes rickets, and these are the symptoms for rickets here. Then iron, lack of iron or deficiency of iron leads to a blood disease called anemia. So anemia is characterized by low hemoglobin levels in the blood, less red blood cells, and easily tired and breathlessness. Maybe after doing small work, you just start breathing heavily. So the person might have anemia. The person has low red blood cells in his body. So we'll move to the next one, which is a balanced diet. What's a balanced diet? The balanced diet just consists of the major classes of food. Any diet that consists of the major classes of food, that's a balanced diet. The major classes of food are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water. Okay, take note of that. Then energy intake. Sources of energy intake include carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So when you take carbohydrate, fats, or proteins, you gain energy. So if you have a larger body size, you need more energy. Okay, just think about the amount of energy that an animal like hippopotamus will need, or a whale, or elephant. Then compare it with yourself, you see that it will be very, very as a large. Now, children require more energy for growth than adults, so children need more protein, because protein can help you in terms of growth. So man has less fatty tissues in his body and needs more heat for heat production. You cannot compare the fat in man to the fats in animals like a seal or a whale. A seal or a whale, the fat in them will contain lots of energy, unlike that in man. People who are more active and perform hard labor need more energy. You want to do a very hard task, then you need a lot of energy. You need to eat either carbohydrates, fats, or you eat proteins. Okay, people living in cold climate also need more energy. Pregnant or breastfeeding mothers also require more energy. The effect of malnutrition. So malnutrition can result from dietary imbalance, okay, or excessive intake of nutrients, or deficient intake. Eating a food that is not balanced in terms of the 7 classes of food can result in what is called malnutrition. Then talking about starvation. Starvation is the lack of energy intake. You're eating food that are not rich in either carbohydrates, proteins, or fat. And don't forget that your body uses energy stored as fats and glycogen. So when you don't eat anything, your body will start eating or start taking the energy from the stored fats and glycogen in your body. So when your body has finished taking all these energies, the fats and glycogen, you start taking the proteins. And since you're not eating anything to supplement what the body is taking, it will lead to loss in body mass. You start becoming thin. The person will look thin and skinny. So it will lead to loss in muscles. Okay, loss in muscles. Muscles mostly made of proteins, you can see. Then weakening of the heart, which can also result in death later. Then obesity. Obesity is the overconsumption of carbohydrate and fats. When you eat too much fat and carbohydrates, it will lead to what is called obesity. And this excess carbohydrate will be stored in the body as fat. Now, these fat deposits will now gather around the organs, which is called visceral fats. That is fat that is not gathering around the heart, or enough fat gathering around the liver. Okay, that's called visceral fat, the fat inside the body. So it may lead to coronary heart diseases. Okay, coronary heart disease, because the fat will now start constricting the veins, okay, and constricting the arteries. The blood will now be flowing at high pressure. It will be forcing the blood to flow very fast, and it can lead to heart attack. Disease now. Overconsumption of saturated fats like cholesterol can increase the risk of heart disease or coronary heart disease. So where coronary arteries become narrow due to fat deposits. So like I said earlier, instead of the arteries to look like this size, they will now look tiny, skinny like this, because there's enough fat compressing them like this. Enough fat compressing these arteries, so the blood will be flowing at a very high pressure, and that high pressure will lead to stroke or heart attack. The next one is constipation. Constipation is the lack of fiber in diets. When you don't have enough fiber in the diet, you're not eating a lot of fruits, you can have constipation. Okay, under I say matter lack bulk. Poor peristalsis. Instead of the food to move down your esophagus, your alimentary canal easily, the food will be hanging. It's not move very, very fast because you don't have fiber in your diet. So the food stays too long in the large intestine. When the food stays too long in the large intestine, the body will absorb all the water in the food. Okay, one of the functions of the large intestine is to absorb water from the food. And since the water has been absorbed from the food will not become dry. Okay, it will cause the person to pass dry stool. When the person is defecating, it's very, very hard. The person will feel pain because the stool is dry. The food has stayed too long in the large intestine. Now, this is a diagram of the human alimentary canal. So it begins from the esophagus. Okay, then it goes down to the stomach. Talk about the pancreas, the colon, the liver, the gallbladder, the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. Then talk about the ileum, the last part, cecum, appendix, the small intestine. Then the large intestine, the rectum, which is the last part of the large intestine. Then the anus. This is where the food matter will pass through. That's ingestion. Now, talking about the 5 processes involved in human nutrition. First one is ingestion. Ingestion is the food taken into the body. So the taking in of food through the mouth is called ingestion. So it takes place in the mouth. Then the next one is called digestion. Digestion is the breaking down of the large food particles, the insoluble food particles, into simple diffusible substances. So where does digestion take place? It takes place in the mouth, the duodenum, the stomach, ileum, liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas. So this large amount of food, which might be something like this at first, they will breaking down to tiny particles. So the process of breaking them down is what is called digestion. Then absorption. The digested food particles diffuse through the villi into the blood. So where does that take place? It takes place in the small intestine, which is the ileum. It takes place in the ileum. Then next one is assimilation. Assimilation is the conversion of the absorbed food substances into what the cell can use, to produce its own biochemical reactions to support the body. So absorbed food substances is converted into substances needed by the body, okay, to make cells or use it for energy. And that assimilation takes place majorly in the liver. The next one is egestion. Egestion is not excretion, don't forget. Egestion is the exit of the undigested food from the body. It takes place in the rectum and the anus. So take note of that. You might be asked in the OBG. Egestion and excretion, are they the same thing? They're not the same thing. They're actually different. The next one is peristalsis. Peristalsis occurs along the entire alimentary canal. Okay, peristalsis. So it takes place in the esophagus, takes place in the stomach, small intestine, and even the large intestine. So peristalsis is like this. When the muscles contract in the walls of the digestive canal, when they contract, when they squeeze, or when they get close to each other, it causes the food to move forward. Then poor peristalsis, like we talked about earlier, it can cause what is called constipation. When your food stays long in your large intestine, it leads to constipation because it will lead to hard stool or hard feces. Now this is a diagram that shows the process of peristalsis. So at X, as you can see at X, the muscles here are contracting. They are becoming thinner. They come together. And when they come together, the horizontal muscles, these ones here, will become flat. Okay? These ones will relax. And when they relax, it causes this food to move in this direction. It causes it to move like this. Then when the food is getting to this particular part, this one will go up. This one too will go up, go down like this. So they will open up. So at Y, the circular muscles relax and longitudinal muscles contract. So this part here will open up like this, so that the food can actually pass through. So it's actually the wave-like movement of food particles or food bolus down the alimentary canal. Next part is digestion of the major classes of food. So we'll start with starch. So digestion of starch starts or begins in the mouth, and it started by the enzyme called amylase in the saliva. And that amylase will convert the starch in the mouth. Maybe you are eating yam or something. That amylase, which is the enzyme in the saliva in your mouth, will convert that starch into what is called maltose. What about if some of the starch are not digested in the mouth? So some of them will escape, but once they escape, they move to the small intestine, where the pancreas will also release amylase again to digest or to break down the undigested starch. Okay, then maltose, after all the starch have become maltose, then maltose is broken down by maltase, and that maltase is secreted by the small intestine, and it converts the maltose into glucose. So the end product of starch digestion is glucose. So from starch, the final product will be glucose. So take note of that. You might be asking OBG. The next one is protein. Protein digestion begins in the stomach. Okay, not in the mouth like starch. So gastric juice secreted by the stomach contains protease. Okay, is that protease that will act on the protein that you have eaten. So protease breaks down the protein that you have eaten into peptones, as you can see. So from the protein, protease acts on it and it gives you peptones. So in the small intestine, the undigested protein is broken down into peptones by protease, which is secreted by the pancreas. So you can see that protein digestion, like I said earlier, it begins in the stomach, yeah. But what if some of the protein escapes into the small intestine? Then the pancreas again will now secrete protease. Okay, then that protease will now break down the proteins that escape from the stomach. You understand? Then peptones finally are broken down into amino acid by peptidases into intestinal juice. So proteins are broken down into amino acid by peptidases. So take note, the end product of protein digestion is amino acid. Let me say it again. The end product of protein digestion is amino acid. Okay, and the enzyme that does that final process is peptidases. Okay, then move to fats or lipids. So bile is produced in the liver and it is stored in the gallbladder. Okay, take note of that. They might ask you in OBG. Bile is produced in the liver, but where is it stored? It is stored in the gallbladder. So the bile released into the duodenum causes fat to become emulsified. So what is emulsification? That is just the combination of two substances that do not mix. So one of them becomes a particle suspended in the other one. So the fat becomes emulsified, and what does that? It is done by bile. Okay, so the fats separate into smaller globules, you can see, and this increases their surface area for enzymes to act on. Now lipase from pancreatic and intestinal juice break down fat into fatty acids and glycerol. So you might be asked, where does the digestion of fat begin? It starts in the small intestine. That's the first thing, and the end product of fats is fatty acid and glycerol, and it is done by what is called lipase. So let's have a review here. So we'll take a review right here. So this is digestive juice here. This is the organ that releases that digestive juice. Then this is the enzyme. So we'll take them one. The first one is saliva. Saliva is released in the mouth. So it contains the enzyme called amylase, which acts on starch. Next one is gastric juice. Gastric juice is released by the stomach and it contains what is called protease. Protease is what breaks down the protein to peptones. Then you also have the pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice is released by the pancreas. That pancreatic juice contains amylase, protease, and lipase. In case some of the starch, the fat, proteins escape from where the digestion normally begins, if they escape, then no how they'll be caught by the pancreatic juice for their final digestion. Then you also have the intestinal juice. Intestinal juice is released by the small intestine and it contains peptidase, maltase, and lipase, so that none of the classes of food will escape. The next one is bile. Bile is produced by the liver, but it is stored in the gallbladder and does not contain any enzyme. It just helps to emulsify fat. So you might be asked that in the OBG, take note of that. Then the next one is adaptation of ileum for absorption. So ileum is the last part of the small intestine, and it has some one or two adaptations that helps it in absorption. So it has an increased surface area, as you can see here. So the inner walls of small intestine have many folds, and these folds are called villi or microvilli. The villi helps in absorption. We're going to talk about it later. Then there's increased time for absorption. Why? Because it's a very long ileum, very, very long. The time for absorption is actually increased. Then there is increased rate of diffusion. The villi walls are made of single epithelial tissues and the movement of the villi. So the villi will help to absorb the nutrients from the food, and it has maintenance of diffusion gradients. Ileum rich in blood vessels that carry away absorbed food quickly. Okay, diffusion gradient is actually high concentration to low concentration. Then the structure of the villus. So the villi is the plural, the villus is the singular. So this is just an image of a villus here. So these are the blood capillaries. A are the blood capillaries, as you can see. That's A, the blood capillaries. Then B is the lacteal. This is the lacteal. This is the capillary network here. So the blood capillaries absorb glucose and amino acids. The lacteal, this is the lacteal here, just in between here, the capillary, that's this Y shape. That lacteal helps to absorb fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, while the villus itself is a thin wall that allows easy diffusion, okay, into the bloodstream. Then we'll talk about the hepatic portal vein. The hepatic portal vein has a very special function. As you can see here, this vein brings about absorbed glucose and amino acids from the ileum directly to the liver. You understand? From the ileum directly to the liver. So this is the guts here, which is your alimentary canal, and this is your liver here. So those nutrients will move. This is where assimilation takes place. This guts here, the vein that connects it to the liver, is what is called the hepatic portal vein. As you can see here, the hepatic portal vein. Then this hepatic portal vein, when it gets to the liver, it leads through what is called the hepatic vein. That is part 1 here, hepatic vein. And what brings blood into the liver is the hepatic artery. So you can see that nutrients enter into the liver through what is called the hepatic portal vein. It leaves through what is called the hepatic vein, and blood enters the liver through the hepatic artery. So this is another diagram of the liver here. This is the hepatic portal vein, which takes in food, digested food from the ileum down to the liver. Then it leaves through what is called the hepatic vein, then through the heart, and so on like that. Then the last one is assimilation. So glucose is used by cells in tissue respiration to release energy. Okay, so glucose plus oxygen, that's basically the basic process of respiration. So the food will be burned. Let me just use that word, like combustion of glucose. That's also to give you the release of energy, which is an exothermic process in terms of respiration. So excess glucose is converted into glycogen and stored in the liver. So the excess glucose that is not used by the body will be converted into glycogen, and that glycogen will be stored in the liver. Conversion of glucose to glycogen is induced by the release of insulin by the pancreas. So to aid that process, to hasten that process, the pancreas will release insulin. That insulin will now help it to convert glucose to glycogen. Then amino acid is used by cells to make proteins, enzymes, hormones, and new protoplasm. You can see that's one of the things we talk about, protoplasm synthesis and the growth of the cell. That's one of the functions of proteins. So amino acid is used by cells to make proteins, enzymes, hormones, and new protoplasm. Then the excess amino acids, the excess ones, they are deaminated. The amino group, the NH2 group, will be removed. It will be removed in the liver. Then it will now be converted into what is called urea. As you can see here, urea as the excretion product. So urea is not actually harmful to the body, but it will be removed through the urine. So the amino group is removed and converted into urea. The remaining part of the protein is converted into glucose. Okay, then urea is non-toxic and will be excreted in the urine, as you can see there. Then excess glucose will be stored as glycogen in the liver and the muscles. So the insulin again will now act on the excess protein that has been converted to the glucose to not convert it back to glycogen and to store it in the liver and the muscles. So don't forget, excess glucose is stored as glycogen. okay, in the liver. The removal of toxins. Harmful substances like alcohol are broken down in the liver. Harmful substances like alcohol are broken down in the liver. Then assimilation of fats. Excess fats are stored in the adipose tissues beneath the skin, around the heart, kidneys, and intestine. That's what we call adipose tissue. Adipose tissues are actually fat tissues. That's why if you look at a small child or a baby, you see that their skin, under their skin, you see that there's enough fat there. That's why they have supple skin or soft skin. They are oxidized only when there is a lack of glucose. The only time fats can be oxidized or when fat can be used is when the body sees that there is no glucose, you have not eaten carbohydrate, and the body will start eating your body, start using up the fat, start oxidizing the fats in your body. They also act as an insulating layer against heat loss. In synthesis of large molecules in the body, glycogen are made up of joining small glucose units together. That's glycogen. So glucose to glycogen, that conversion is done by insulin. And when you combine small glucose units together, you have what is called glycogen. So proteins are made by joining amino acid units together. So these amino acid units. So when you combine them together, you get what's called protein. Then fats contains 1 glycerol and 3 fatty acid units. This is basic organic chemistry. So fats contain 1 molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acid. So that's all for the quick one shot woman nutrition. Like and subscribe to this channel and check out the next video on your screen, okay? I'll see you guys in the next one. Remain blessed. Peace.